The WP MRR WordPress podcast is brought to you by WP Buffs. WP Buffs manages WordPress websites 24/7 and powers digital growth for agencies, freelancers, and WordPress professionals. Join our white label program, and by next week, you could be offering 24/7 white label website support to your clients and passively growing your monthly recurring revenue. Or become a WP Buffs affiliate to earn 10% monthly payouts every month for the lifetime of every client. And finally, if you're looking to sell your WordPress business or website, check out the WP Buffs acquisition unit. Learn more about all three at WPBuffs.com.
All right, we are live on the pod this week. I have the opportunity to talk with Michelle Frechette. So Michelle, we've been friends for a little while, but I don't know if everybody in the WordPress space knows you. If they don't, they should. Tell folks a little bit about stuff you do with WordPress.
Sure. Thanks for having me back, Joe. I was thinking about the fact that the first time I talked to you, it was a video call, and I was in St. Louis. And I had just started working for Give, and you and I got on a talk together just to see, how could we help each other's businesses out? And so that was kind of cool. That was 3 years ago. Who knew? Man. But yeah, so I'm the head of customer success for GiveWP. I also have my own little podcast called WP Coffee Talk, and just a whole host of other things that I like to give back to the community. Specifically, Wednesdays, I tweet out job opportunities for people, and that seems to go really well. That gets a lot of traction, and people seem to really enjoy it, and point them back to WP career pages, where I just list out career pages, job sites, and things like that on different companies' websites. So just lots of opportunities to give back. Love it.
Yeah, I see that on Twitter. I don't know if I knew it was every Wednesday, but definitely every once in a while I'm on Twitter and I'm like, it's Michelle's day for tweeting out job stuff, because I see all the jobs you're tweeting out. And it seems like a really cool opportunity, because I like the idea of helping people find opportunities that fit them. I've talked with a few other business owners in the WordPress space, and the one consistent thing I feel like we all have in common is I'm looking to hire someone for something, whether that's a full-time hire or a freelancer to do X, Y, or Z. Most of us are looking to hire somebody, and so the ability for us to share within the community, hey, I know this content writer, I think they'd be a good fit over with you. Maybe you two should talk, and just doing that could make a connection that really has a huge effect. So yeah, I dig that you do that. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. I just randomly choose different companies, and those people specifically tell me that there's something they'd like me to include. So I just try not to do the same companies every week, but Buffs have been in there once or twice. And highlighting different positions that you have open. It's just a good opportunity for people to see, in one place, that there's a lot going on, and there's opportunities to be employed and to reach people. Yeah,
for sure. And podcasts, obviously we have to talk about that. Folks are listening on a podcast right now. They should go download another WordPress podcast, WP Coffee Talk. What's the tell folks the quick description of what the show is? It's just sitting down, cup of coffee. I've been on the show, so I know, but tell folks, what it's all about.
That's exactly it. I actually ask every single guest the same set of questions. Of course, everybody has different answers, and that what makes it pretty cool. I think of myself kind of like the James Lipton of WordPress, the same set of questions to every guest. And that's what makes it fun, actually. So whether you have just your website, and you're a business owner, and you're using WordPress for the first time, and it's brand new to you, or you're Matt Mullenweg, and you are one of the co-founders and CEO of Automatic, I ask you all the same questions. And both of those things have happened. I've had guests from 6 out of 7 continents. I just published my 103rd episode in 2 years, and I got about 30 more in the can that are ready to go out as soon as I can get around to it. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So cool. It's interesting talking with other people who've done 100 plus episodes, because we have 100 plus episodes too. And it's looking back, it's oh my goodness, that is a lot of episodes to have done. It feels it's almost strange looking back. I can't almost believe that it's been, years of doing a podcast and 100 plus episodes. And of course, I think we have to talk a little bit about episode 100 of the WP Coffee Talk Show, where you had Matt on the podcast. So cool. Feel free to tell him, hey, WPMRR podcast would be a cool one for you to jump on too. But I guess you asked him the same questions as you ask everyone else. How was that experience? Is that cool talking with him?
It was super cool. Because of who he is, there was more preparation involved than I expected. So he has an entourage of people that handle those things for him. It wasn't like I was just, texting Matt Mullenweg about, hey, you ready for that podcast next week? So I was talking to his people and getting things all squared away and what does it look like to how am I advertising it and all of those kinds of things. So that was really a learning experience for me as well. But I also had people warning me that he's very thoughtful in how he answers questions, and so I should be prepared for long pauses. But it was so fluid and the conversation really flowed and we both laughed and we had a lot of fun. And what people have said back to me is, wow, that was an episode that really made me realize he's a human being. He's not just this person who sits on top of the organization. And that he was like, it was so conversational. Wow, Michelle, he really just talked to you. I'm like, that's kind of my superpower. Like, people are my superpower. I just like talking to people. And it was a good episode and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think about when you talk about someone who takes a little time before they answer a question, I think about like Elon Musk, actually. Because I don't know if you've ever heard Elon Musk get interviewed, but he will take like 10-second pauses in the middle of an interview, or like 15-second pause, and it's a little bit, it's like a little bit awkward, but like for me, it's actually not at all, because I really like that pause, because I'm like, wow, he's really wanting to give a thoughtful response to this answer. So that's where it comes up in my mind, but I'm kind of not surprised that like Matt is somewhat the same way and wants to have thoughtful answers. When he does his Q&A at the State of the Word, I find that most of his answers, I guess all of his answers, I'm trying to think of one that wasn't well answered, but most of the time, I think he has very, very thoughtful answers, and he like knows exactly how he wants to answer the questions, but sometimes he's willing to take that time, even if it's 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, to come up with the answer that he wants to give that in his mind is the right answer, not necessarily the fastest answer. So I guess that was what it was like.
Right. But as a podcaster, when somebody takes 10 or 15 seconds to respond, on video, it's fine because anybody watching can see that he's being reflective. But dead air in an audio podcast is just like, no, talk, please talk.
Totally. Yeah, it feels a little bit like awkward. Like, do the listeners think like we're like messing up right now? But like having a little bit of that pause there can also like be, oh, maybe he was just thinking about it.
Dramatic.
You also probably hear Morris in the background a little bit. He's hungry right now, so if that comes through to people on the podcast, he's just a little hungry right now. Nothing to worry about.
He's a kid. He's allowed to be.
Yes, exactamundo. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about some of the work you're doing at Give, because donation plugin stuff. I was just on with someone. I was doing just a sales call with someone the other day who asked us, hey, under your Perform plan, could you help us implement on-page donations? We have everything handled off-page, like people go to another website to do it. Can you help us handle it on-page? I was like, yeah, like Give plugin, perfect solution. One of the things you mentioned in some of the call notes here, something you want to talk about, recurring donations as opposed to one-time donations. Can we like talk about this? Because obviously WP, MRR, WordPress podcast, I'm all about monthly recurring revenue, but it's the same with a nonprofit. Monthly donations as opposed to one-time donations, I think in a lot of times would be probably more effective over the long term to drive donations. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from someone who's actually an expert in the donation platform. What do you think about the recurring donations? And should people be looking into that more?
Absolutely. So, to think about it this way, when you're running a nonprofit, and I've volunteered at nonprofits and I even had a nonprofit with a best friend once. $100 donation feels big, right? So especially if you're small organization, $100, like, wow, we got $100. But But if somebody's giving me $10 a month, then that's $120 in a year as opposed to $100. And so even though it feels incremental and that $10 a month doesn't feel like it is much for the person who's giving it or the person who's receiving it, it's sustainable because it's money that's coming in over time. And the more money that you can have do that, it's like a drip campaign, right? So you have money dripping in over time. Right. That means that you can pay your bills longer. You can implement, features in your nonprofit and services that you want to be able to offer to your constituents. And so having that recurring revenue is it's like that security blanket that you can keep doing what you want to keep doing and keep helping the people and the animals, or whatever the environment, whatever your cause is, over time, because you have that money coming in.
Yeah, I don't know if I could add much more to that. I think that's perfect. It's pretty much the same with monthly recurring revenue for a for-profit business. It's the same idea. It's the same concept. I would love to dig into a little bit about how you, because there's a lot of the same metrics around churn as well. Yes, right. $10 a month is $120 over a year, but if someone stops their donation after 3 months, it's $30 as opposed to the $100 one-time donation. So the trick is, as the same with monthly recurring revenue in general, how do you reduce churn or reduce the number of cancellations, and how do you increase the lifetime value of a donator? So maybe we could talk about how folks in the nonprofit space do that, or if like you're an agency or a freelancer doing work for nonprofits, what could you advise people to do to help elongate that, like every time that donation comes through, maybe an email sent, how do you like make people feel awesome every time that donation goes through? It's like, I'm not going to cancel this. This is perfect. I want to keep giving.
Well, in fundraising, so people in the nonprofit sector, especially when I used to work, for 20 years I worked in higher education. And so when you have they called it development, right? So development in, in the tech industry is a little bit different than what they call development in the nonprofit sector, especially education. Development is that fundraising. And they actually call it friend-raising more than they call it fundraising. Nice. Because the idea is that you're building those relationships, and that the better relationship you have with the donor, the more likely they are to give you big gifts and to give you gifts over time that are sustaining. The same is true for any kind of recurring revenue, right? So if I sell you a subscription and then you never hear from me again, am I likely to continue that subscription past, one iteration or two iterations? Not as likely as if I'm reaching out to you and building that relationship so that you see that we're an organization that's here to help you and here to sustain you. Or in the nonprofit sector, we're an organization that's using your money to do good in the world, right? In whatever part of the world that is. I always talk about dog shelters. It's the easiest one to talk about because everybody loves dogs, right? So, if I'm a dog shelter and I'm reaching out to my donors, I'm thanking them for what they do, I'm giving them opportunities to be involved in multiple ways, then I am allowing them to see how they're impacting how we take care of the animals in the dog shelter, how the adoptions are working, that those animals are finding their forever homes, for example. And so building those relationships and being able to share that information, which includes transparency in how that money is being spent. It's not a give us money so we can do good. It's give us money so you can do good through us, and continuing that relationship for sure. One of the things that I always say around customer success, because of course I'm the head of customer success, is the number one thing in getting that recurring donations and getting those recurring purchases in the case of e-commerce is you have to have a product that's worth buying and then worth buying again. And in the case of donations, that's you have to have a service that you're providing the general public, that somebody's not only willing to give you money once, but they want to see you sustain. And so they want to make it worth giving you money over and again. So whether that's something that somebody's buying for themselves or something that they're help funding another way, make it something that people want to continue to give toward. And then back it up with human interaction, because it's the relationships that will keep that sustained.
Yeah, that relationship thing is like resonates a lot with me because it's obviously so important for the nonprofit work and the making the world a better place work, all that stuff that you're talking about. But it's like that for everything. It's the same with our company, So and we try to do good at our company too, but we are a for-profit company, so it's slightly different. But it's the relationships that it's all about. And what you say about relationships in nonprofits, I feel is totally true. I have a friend who runs a nonprofit in India, and I give every year, and I fund, students to have, private school education every year in India. It's super easy for me to give because she's my friend, and she actually literally sends me a personal email every year with some details about what's going on, but also she had the student who I funded shoot a video to say Joe and Sterling, thank you so much for giving, and it was like, obviously I'm giving again. Like, I just like almost put me in like no choice to have to give again, like, because it was like clearly my money is literally going towards making someone's life more awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give again. So that's an
Did you
annual
tear up?
donation. It's a little different, but
I would tear up. I would tear up when I saw that kid's face on the screen. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm making a difference.
it was a difference maker. I was kind of a little emotional in there for a second, because it really does, like, it's not just like me swiping my card to make someone's life better. It's like someone literally like said, thank you. Like, I have these textbooks and I got this year of education. And I'm like, here's what I learned. Here's some artwork that I did. And it's like, okay, it wasn't just money that I gave. It was like a difference that I gave. And I think giving people that reminder regularly is always going to be helpful. And building that relationship with people in that sense is so important. Would you advise people send out like, because you want to kind of stay top of mind every month if people are doing monthly donations, would you say it's like best practice to make sure you're doing a regular email campaign to people? I guess not everyone does email, but like I guess a regular, however you stay in touch with people. I assume most nonprofits will collect email addresses with donations, so an email would probably make the most sense. But is that something that you think would be helpful for like agencies or freelancers to advise their nonprofits to do?
For sure. So the first thing is, and with GiveWP, for sure, I'm not here to do a marketing campaign, but just to tell you how it works, because it works well. And whatever you're using, you want to make sure it works like this, is every donation gets an automated email receipt or donation confirmation. Right? So you should not just, we have a nice generic one in there, and certainly you can use it, but you shouldn't use it. You should actually take it and make it more personal, right? So yeah, it automatically says, Dear Joe. It's going to have some of that in there. It's going to have all the details of the donation. But instead of saying, thanks for supporting our organization, say, thanks for supporting our local dog shelter. Your difference helps keep the tails wagging. Something that really makes it a little bit more personalized, and not just personalized to the person, but personalized about your organization as well. And so every time somebody makes whether it's a recurring donation or a one-time donation, you want to make sure that those emails are going out to them saying, thanks for continuing to support the organization. Your money keeps the water bowls filled and the tails wagging and the wet nose kisses, or whatever you want to say that's going to make somebody feel like it's a little bit different. It's not just a standard, email that's coming through. And then if you have the capacity as an organization to do a monthly newsletter, absolutely, because a monthly newsletter, you can change up the content. You can show the pictures of these are the dogs that were adopted. These are the ones that are waiting adoption. This is ways you can give. If you can't give financially, we need, dry dog food, old sheets and blankets, or whatever it is that people can give in different ways. And of course, like I say, I just keep using the dog shelter as an example. But, if you're doing a children's charity or mental health charity, there's things that everybody needs. There's ways that you can do. And it gives you the opportunity to say, and if you have some time and you'd like to volunteer, we have opportunities for that as well.
Yeah.
I get suckered in that way.
I think, hey, that's a human psychology thing, I think, because I get emails even from for-profit companies that their thank you emails are really personalized and saying like, hey, here's some awesome stuff we did, this month. Obviously, you're paying us for our services, but part of your payment goes towards doing this really cool work. So thank you for helping us do that. Even that helps me say like, well, it's going to be a little harder for me to cancel this now, and I think with nonprofits, It's going to be even more important to say like, here's what we did this month, or here's the exact difference that you made. Like, here's a picture of a dog that we were able to save because you gave money. People are, I'd have a hard time being like, sorry, I can't give anymore. It's like, oh, I saved the dog. I got to keep saving dogs. Sorry.
That dog's got to stay in the shelter longer.
I know.
You and I both appreciate the Big Orange Heart as well. So, Big Orange Heart is one that does that very, very well. So I give on a monthly basis. I get my thank you every month. I was the first time you give, Dan Maybe sends a video. He goes out walking with his dog every day, uploads 30-second videos, thanks you personally. And the first time I saw that, I was like, that's super cool. Within a month, I was volunteering to help them install Give. I mean, they had Give, but install some new forms and things like that. And now I'm fully entrenched. I'm in the weekly meetings. I am part of the conversation there, and I'm doing WordFest and all those other things. And I know that the WP Buff supports that organization as well. You were sponsors for WordFest. It's one of the organizations that does that so well that you can't help but want to be involved.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're sponsors of the live event and donators on a regular basis as well. I want to rewind a second to what you said about some of the things he does when you first make a donation, that personal video for 30 seconds. I think that a lot of people are always thinking like, how do I automate things? How do I scale things? How do I do things faster? How do I send the automatic email out so I don't have to send the email out? And in some cases, maybe when you're trying to scale something or grow something faster, it may make sense to do more automation. But if you can take 5 minutes a day to shoot 10, 30-second videos and just shoot them out to people, like that is going to create unforgettable experiences for people. Like that was an experience you had and like you remember it. Like you remember when that happened, it stuck with you and now you're talking about it on a podcast, right? So it's like clearly something that maybe is not the most scalable thing to do. Like what's he gonna do when he has 100 people signing up a day? Shoot 100 videos? Probably not. But for now, it makes sense for him to do that and to create those positive impacts for people so that they will do more, like help volunteer more and be more connected with the organization. And so that I really like that example of something that's like a super small thing to do that does take a little bit of time to do, but hey, he does it when he walks his dog. What else is he doing? And look at the impact it's had on you and as a community member in the WordPress space to do all this other, spreading of the good big orange heart words. So I think that's like a really cool idea for maybe nonprofits, but everyone to do in their business, to think about the like small, high impact things you can do that may not be automated or whatever, not like the sexiest automation you've ever seen, but it's like, it can still be the most effective for things you do. So that's cool.
Well, here at GiveWP, when somebody makes a purchase, if they give us their phone number, we call them within a week just to make sure that they understand how to use the software. We don't want them to like have purchased it and then not use it because they don't understand how to do the onboarding. So we offer them opportunities. We reach out to phone calls. We call them 6 months in again to make sure things are still going well. Because number one, we want to make sure they're successful. Number two, successful customers are the ones that are happiest. They've built that relationship with you. They're much more likely to sign up for year 2 again and let that subscription continue to work.
Yeah, so I know. Y'all have been doing that for a while. I remember hearing for the first time you like call people to see if their plugin's working. I've literally never heard of another plugin company doing that, but that's like a really cool, it makes it so unique. Like talk about unforgettable experience. Like I've bought 10 plugins. Someone calls me, I get an automated email, like that's it. I got a call from Give. Man, they really like want to give to me. They want to do good for me. So I love that. And it actually kind of flexes well into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was using the Give plugin as in terms of doing donations and how nonprofits can do donations actually on their website as opposed to sending people off to maybe a separate site that opens a new tab to check out. I was on, again, a call with someone. It was a sales call for WP Buffs, and they were asking about if we could help them implement on-site payments as opposed to off-site payments, because they had a link that says donate here. It opens a new tab, so it doesn't close that tab, but it goes to another domain, and that's probably not the ideal way or the biggest trust-building way to accept donations. Maybe it could be, but I can definitely see places where they go to a new domain, they're like, where am I? Like, what website am I on? This is weird. So is that something that obviously Give is an on-site donation plugin, but is that something that you've seen that when people switch to Give, that they actually find that it makes the on-page donation actually like affects the conversion or the click-through rate or the number of people who actually go through and make the donation?
Anecdotally, I have that information. I can't just pull up some numbers for you off the top of my head.
Right.
But absolutely. Think about it, like if you go to Amazon, like I buy things from Amazon, especially during the pandemic. I've been ordering more and more things right online. If I was ordering on Amazon and I went to hit a payment and it took me to some other payment processor's website, I'd be like, whoa, what's going on here, right? So because it's staying on site, you're much more likely to hit that button at the bottom and know that that's donation has gone through. So that donation goes through, you get immediate confirmation, you get right on screen, it tells you, thank you, your donation's been processed, here's what the receipt looks like, and you're getting an emailed receipt as well. So you have absolute, in real time information, as opposed to, I hit that donate button and now it's taking me someplace else and there's another step. So now I've started, maybe I'm losing trust, maybe I'm just a little confused. You have older donors that are like at churches and things like that are going, oh, what just happened? I don't really know what I'm doing. I better close that down because, their kids and their grandkids have told them, Grandma, don't, be careful when you're making payments online and all those kinds of questions. So you want to make sure that you're controlling the experience in such a way that people feel like they've done the right thing because they didn't click something wrong or things like that, but also that they feel confident that at the end of the day, you have the money they intended you to have in a very safe way.
Right. Yeah. I think I feel the exact same way when I click to a new place, unless it's like PayPal or something. Sometimes it's like a PayPal button and it goes to a new place. I'm like, I understand how that works. I've done it before.
Yeah.
But if it's some like random payment processor and I've never heard of them, I might be hesitant to check out. I probably would be hesitant to check out. So I think on-site reoccurring payments sounds like the move.
Absolutely. And PayPal actually is rolling out a new way to do business so that you don't actually have to leave your site to process PayPal payments. So PayPal payments is new. We have PayPal donations where people can put the credit card on site. They never leave, or they can actually make the PayPal payment right on site and not have to leave your site to do that. So that's something that you're going to see rolling out more and more often in sites that you visit.
Nice. Finally, I've always thought like this should just be like an option to like literally do this like in an embed on the site. Like I can't imagine that's that technically hard, but PayPal, big company, even doing a small thing like that, maybe just a lot of yellow and red tape. So that's cool.
Or in their case, yellow and blue.
Right. Hey, there you go. Company color tape.
That's right. Speaking of company colors, look at this mug.
Yeah, I noticed that earlier. You took a sip. Look at that Buff-tastic mug. Yeah, shop.wpbuffs.com if anybody wants to grab that.
That's where I got mine.
Yeah, awesome. So cool. That was fun throwing that store together, actually. It's just a Printful integration, so it's pretty straightforward to put together, right? I think, doesn't Give have a new store with some stuff on it? Yes.
We do,
I'm gonna grab some stuff.
Baseball caps. I might have also a Buffs hat and a tote bag and a mug. So, gotta support our friends, right?
Amazing. The on-site payment thing, I just wanted to touch on a little bit more in terms of the one-time versus recurring option that people have.
Yes.
How have you seen some of your clients integrating the option to do one-time versus the option to do recurring? Can you make it in the plugin so that like the first option is recurring and then you can go like click somewhere to say, oh, I just want to give a one-time to kind of entice recurring giving instead of one-time? Yes. Do you have it kind of like side by side? Is it like optional? How does that work?
So with the Give form, you can either have it be required or optional. So for example, if you're a membership site, you might want to set it to be required. So it's an annual payment. Right. Not that people can't opt out of it, because of course they can, but it's one of those set it and forget it kind of things. You can also have it be optional. And you can have the frequency of the donation either hard-coded, right? So you can say, this is always a monthly donation, or you can allow your donors to choose. It's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. And so depending on how you set it up, they can opt in, they can be required, or they can choose their own frequency, or it can be set for them. Lots of options.
Yeah. Always good to have options. Yeah, there's so many edge cases out there. You just celebrated like your 100K party recently, so you've got a lot of people, which means you have a lot of edge cases. So having like different options for people is like, when you're starting off, you don't need all the options, but as you get more advanced, like you're going to have 10 people a day with like, does your thing do this? Does your thing do that? And you want to try and make as many of those people happy as possible. So more options means hopefully taking care of more edge cases.
Absolutely. And those edge cases start to creep in and more. I think there's probably only 4 or 5 times over the course of the last 3 years somebody said, how can I accept Bitcoin? But of those 4 or 5 times, like 2 of them were this year, and the other 2 were spread out over 2 years. So you start to see things that like become more and more frequent. Or sometimes, I had somebody a couple weeks ago say, can it do XYZ? And I said, well, unfortunately, no, that's not one of the features of this. And he got angry and he's like, this is something that everybody needs. And I said, here's the feedback on it. You can look and see that only 2 people ever have requested this function. So it's not worth you don't say to a customer, it's not worth our investment to develop that. But the truth is, if there are only 2 people out of 100,000 users need that, that's not where you focus your development time.
Yeah. Something that's really important for a lot of companies to do, a lot of plugin development companies, so that they can know what feedback they're getting at what rate so they can know what new things they should build. Is that something that you have on GiveWP.com? Like, is it on the website somewhere so people can like shoot a link to people, or is it internally and maybe you shoot screenshots to people in emails?
It's actually, it's something called Canny. And so we use something called Canny for feedback. Canny. And yeah, it's its own site. So I think it's feedback.givewp.com or something like that. And there's a public-facing site, and then there's an internal site. So we can make internal notes that aren't public to everybody for as we work through development and as we have discussions about features, bugs, things like that. But then we can also shoot an email to somebody or shoot a link to somebody's email and say, you can upvote it here, or here's where you can see the progress as we discuss it publicly and that kind of thing. So, we have people, for example, that really want to be able to do text to give. And so that's a feature that's been upvoted quite a bit, and people can follow along and see that. Is that in development right now? It's not, because of the complexity of what it is and the things that we have higher up on the list. Right? But for sure. But then there's things like peer-to-peer giving, where people want to be able to do front-end submission. And we have a workaround for that, right? You can use Gravity Forms, you can use Ninja Forms to create front-end submission. It creates the form on the back end, somebody approves it, et cetera. But we're working on a plugin for that to make it a much more easy way to do that. And so the feedback on that, you see a lot more movement, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I just looked up Canny. It's just canny.io, canny.io. Looks really cool. I love it seems kind of like Intercom, not in the sense that it's the same tool, but in the sense that you just like put it on a subdomain or something, and it's like it makes it really easy to just like have a super awesome, great UX UI tool by just like,
and it's branded.
Having it, exactly, and branded for Give. So I think that's a really cool solution that other people maybe listening be like, oh, what's Canny? Canny.io. The text to give thing, I think, is like interesting. That sounds like a huge project, right? It's not like, oh, we'll just do it in a week, right? It's like, that's a big, big project. But I also do know how effective that is. My wife still does nonprofit work, but she used to work at a nonprofit that did a big dinner every year, a fundraising dinner when we were still able to, right? Years ago, it feels. But they did a big text to give every year to fund a new fellow. And it looked technically complex, but also it was super effective though. So
it is,
that's something I guess Give has to balance, like a lot of how many people want this, and then there's the business decision where it's like, okay, if X number of people said they want it, how many people are actually going to use it? How much are we able to increase revenue for the business for people who are going to buy this? How many new customers are we going to get because of it? Does that help fund the development of it? If it's going to cost, $100,000 of time and resources to build, well, there's some business decision in there too to say, like, of course we want to build this for everyone. If it was just that easy, we would, but it has to kind of make sense from a business and financial standpoint as well.
And it is on the list of future development. It's not on the we're never doing this list. So it's just a matter of finding the right balance of when it's appropriate and how we can direct our resources to get that done in a way that doesn't affect the usability and the staff that we have working with the product that we have right now. Yeah,
totally hear you. You can't sacrifice all the good work that you're doing now for customers to like have one cool thing that you're working on. It gives a bigger company than that, and can't just put down everything you're working on right now. I did want to rewind quickly, because you keep saying things I want to talk about. And I'm like, okay, I have a thing to say, but I want to rewind back to that thing. Bitcoin.
Sure.
Is that something that, I think you said, 2 people all of last year, 2 people this year so far, so maybe slight acceleration. But is that something that you think maybe on your plate at some point to start accepting cryptocurrency?
It's not in our list of current development, for sure. One of the ways that I tell people that you can do it is to use our offline donation option, right? So offline donation is a way that somebody's basically making a pledge. They're telling you how they're going to give you money. And then when they click that option, they're given the address to mail a check to, for example. Well, with Bitcoin, we know that there's either addresses you can use, or there are QR codes that you could include for people to be able to give that way. So a workaround for that is to put that information in the offline donation. So you can accept it, and it will show up there in your collected. The only thing you need to do is verify that you received the funds, and then change it from a pending donation to a completed donation. So there's a slight manual component to it, but it doesn't negate the fact that you can still use other means to be able to collect those payments and those donations. So yeah, so it's coming.
Yeah, maybe at some point. I think there's a lot of challenges around accepting Bitcoin as well, but just because it's not FDIC insured, to work with banks on that, there's a lot of legal and technical requirements that you just want to make sure you're putting the business in a good position to make sure you're not, doing anything illegal or something that's just not something that may be a little suspect to some random, legal person who might say, I don't know if they should be accepting Bitcoin. So that's always a thought.
I know it's not new, of course. Cryptocurrency has been around for a little bit, but it's still new enough that you're not seeing a lot of nonprofit organizations have a crypto wallet. You can't pay Amazon with crypto. So, it doesn't make sense that every organization is looking to accept cryptocurrencies. But those that there are ways to do that on your site. There's ways to do that. And then with manual donations or with offline donations, you can still incorporate it into your Give database and still see those overall donations and reports. So there is a way around it.
Yeah, it seems like accepting Bitcoin, I think it's possible for a lot of businesses. You just have to have somewhat of a separate workflow for it. It can't really work within current workflow, but you can still do it. It's just a little bit of a workaround. You do the QR code, they give over here. You have to make sure you get that alert. So you mark it as paid over here, but it still works. It's just a little bit of extra work. But I think honestly, any business who wants to accept Bitcoin, it's just not the point where it's you click a button and you can accept it, right? It takes a little extra work, but I think most people who would say, I want to accept Bitcoin would probably be willing to take, an hour or two to work on the workaround and figure out just exactly how to get it to work exactly.
But it's certainly not going to work like a traditional payment processor, which is the way our gateways are working right now. So
totally. I'd love to hear a little bit more about because Give, obviously, you can accept donations on Give. I think people listening probably know that at this point. What about some of the management of some of the the relationship management stuff in terms of, okay, you can accept donations, but how are we, using this database of people effectively? How are we doing some of our outreach? Is that something that is in the back end of Give as well, the relationship management part, or the actual
yes and no.
additional work of nonprofit and donation stuff? Yes and no.
You absolutely can access for sure. My answer to almost everything is, well, it depends. But the truth is that it's not a full functioning CRM, and it wasn't intentioned to be a CRM. It is a way to accept donations. However, that being said, you can pull information out of there into a CSV file however you'd like, and you can always upload CSV files into third parties. You can upload them into any spreadsheet processing, and then create reports and mail merges and whatever else you want to do that way. It also Give has the ability to use Zapier. So if you're using a CRM that has a Zapier endpoint, you can zap your donations, your donation information, into HubSpot or into Salesforce, for example, things like that. And we do have 5 add-ons that work with different mail management systems. So ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, Constant Contact, MailChimp, and I can never remember the last one. But there are 5 of them. And so if you're using any of those as a CRM, you can use ActiveCampaign as a CRM. You can use MailChimp as a CRM. And so you don't need Zapier even. You can send all the information through, including metadata, to those mail processing things and use those as your CRM and have all of that information stored there as well. Yeah, that's a super easy way to do things. It takes a slight bit of technical know-how even to use Zapier. We use Zapier a lot, and it's to create a Zap is there's a little bit of it's not, I wouldn't call it technical, but it's I don't know, confidence in a technical platform to have to do it. Yeah. I'm trying to remember who I've talked to about creating Zapier integrations for plugins though, but I've talked to someone who said managing the Zapier integration is itself a pretty big project. Is that something, are the folks at Give and the development team having to manage all those integrations and kind of API stuff as well? No, most people, our documentation really walks you through it. I didn't know how to use Zapier, and so I created a test account through, I have a test account through Give, and I wanted to be able to advise my customers when they're having questions. So I went ahead and set up a Zap for our demo site, and I'm able to do screenshots, and I'm able to walk them through the process because now I understand it. And I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer. I don't have that same skill set. Yeah, of course I'm in the tech industry, and I can understand how technology works. But anybody working on the back end of a WordPress website has about the same level of knowledge or the ability, and so certainly can walk them through those things. But I have to say our documentation is absolutely phenomenal. There's so much good documentation for GiveWP that helps you use it. And the customer success team was willing to hop on Zoom calls and walk our customers through anything they don't understand. So I do have people who are technophobes who are trying their best to understand how to use the product on their websites. We hop on a quick Zoom call. We have them share their screen. We walk them through the process and instill the confidence in them that they know that they can actually do this. And then also by the end of the call, they do a test and they see that it's working and they feel happy.
Cool. I feel like the focus on accepting donations right now is obviously Give's strong suit. That's what it does the best, better than anybody. Using a Zapier integration or other APIs or integrations to push people into a true CRM totally makes most sense right now. Because those CRMs right now are they're the best at CRM. So literally you add a Zapier integration. It's accept a donation. They're in the CRM. They have these specific tags because they donated this way. And it's they're already, and then you just have to know how to use that CRM. My question would be, if you're looking at Give, 3 years out, 5 years out, obviously who knows what's going to happen then. But is that a thought that the Give team has that eventually we'd like to that's the next evolution of the company, is to go from just being focused on donations to truly being a within WordPress CRM for nonprofits? Or are you I don't even know if we're thinking about that yet?
Well, I will tell you, so I'm the head of customer success. I am not one of the primary owners, so I'm not in all of those conversations. And if that's a conversation they're having right now, I haven't been part of it.
Yeah, so maybe not quite yet, or at least hasn't spread around the team, but...
Can you tell I used to be in politics?
No, very good answer. Yeah, yes, no, maybe so.
Exactly.
But I'm just, that's honestly just my brain thinking about what's the next evolutionary step. But a lot of times, there's a lot of nonprofits out there. There's no need to want to jump into something where the Give team may not be an expert in, or it may just not, you may not want to add complexity to what you do. Maybe just staying simple and doing that one simple thing awesome for more people, and fine-tuning that thing may be the way to go. So I'm not here saying that has to be the next step, or that the next step should always be to go into doing bigger, more complex things.
Right.
I was just kind of asking because that's where my brain went.
I always say we're not Jetpack. We're not trying to do everything on the back end of your website.
Yeah, that's well, in a lot of senses, that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Michelle, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you hopping on and helping me to talk about how I can serve nonprofits selfishly. Now, I talk to nonprofits too, and I want to know how we can better help them at WP Buffs in terms of the support we give them, what kind of advice we can give them. I have people on, after I shoot episodes of this show and they get published, I actually shoot the ones that are relevant to people on our team. Hey, just listen to this episode. What I said is not super important. You can mute when I'm talking, but when Michelle's talking, listen to some of the stuff she's saying, because that may be some advice that we may want to give to some of our nonprofits. So I'm definitely going to do that after we get off here. So let's wrap up, and why don't you tell folks where they can listen to the podcast, where they can find Give online, where they can find you online, all that jazz.
Absolutely. So you can go to givewp.com and you can sign up for a demo. You can download the free product because it is free to use Give without any of the add-ons. You can get that right out of the WordPress plugin directory. We're on Twitter at GiveWP, and so we tweet a lot of stuff there. Our blog is very rich. We blog several times a week with lots of great ideas for fundraising and ways to use Give to be more successful. My podcast is WPCoffeeTalk.com. You can download all the episodes, listen to them right there. Also on Twitter at WPCoffeeTalk. So if you want to hear my conversation with Matt Mullenweg, for example, hit me up and give a listen. He has such a mellifluous voice. He's just so calming to hear him talk. So cool.
Totally. I've already listened to that episode, but I'm going to go back and give a second listen to the show. Last thing I ask our guests to do here on the show is just to ask our listeners for a little Apple Podcast review. So if you wouldn't mind asking folks to give us a little review, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so give us a review at WPMRR. We want to absolutely know that what we're doing here and what Joe is putting out there is being useful to you. So give a 5-star. Help a fellow out and help other people find this good work.
Absolutely. WPMRR.com/review/reviews/iTunes. I can't remember the forwarding domain that's supposed to go there. /iTunes. I actually probably have to change because it's called Apple Podcasts now. So I'm just thinking of all sorts of things today. So WPMRR.com/iTunes still gets you right there. Feel free to leave a review.
I see a bunch of 301 redirects in your future.
Exactly. I think they're coming. They're coming soon. 301 to 301 to right page. That's how redirects work, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Leave a comment if you have time. Something you learned from this episode, so we can shoot a screenshot to Michelle and say thanks for helping us get this review. And while you're at it, WP Coffee Talk, give them a review too. You know, if you're on a review spree, just give everyone a nice little review. If you're new,
share the love.
Share the love. Why not? If you're a new listener to the show, we've got 100 plus, 140 something episodes on all sorts of topics. You learned about some nonprofit work today, donation stuff today, but we've got topics we've done all sorts of topics on the show. So use the search function, WPMRR.com/podcast, and go binge some old episodes. Instead of that, whatever show you're binging right now, go binge your podcast. It'll help you.
Game of Thrones is over. Go listen to WPMRR instead.
Totally. If you have questions for me on the show, at WPMRR.com. Shoot us an email. I like to do Q&A episodes every once in a while. And I would love to answer some of your questions live on the pod. So shoot those in and I will get you answers here on the WPMRR WordPress podcast. That is all for this week. We will be in your podcast players and on YouTube again next Tuesday, Thursdays for YouTube episodes. So Michelle, thanks again for being on. It's been real.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone.